Jurassic Park.
Hello friends, and welcome back to the Rent Crew. 2023 was an amazing year for typal deck lovers like myself. First, we got Slivers and Eldrazi, and, in Return to Ixalan, we got Dinos, Merfolk, Vampires, and Pirates. In the Ixalan set, we're exploring the remains of an ancient, advanced civilization, whose secrets are being fought after by the many groups involved. We get to play their decks. The main twist, however, is the existence of a giant underground world that's filled with dinosaurs and a fake sun? Now, don't ask me how this is even possible, but I guess, in the words of our favorite sexy chaostician,
life, finds a way.
Now, onto the precon. For the sake of this video, we're going to stick true to the theme of the deck by keeping the same commander. The deck is in Naya colors, so red, green, and white, with the commander Pantlaza Sun favored. For 2 generic, 1 red, green, and a white, Pantlaza is a 4/4 legendary, which introduces us to the brand new mechanic of Discover. Discover is essentially a power creep version of Cascade. So, when a card has this ability, it will usually specify a value. So, for example, Discover 1, 2, or in Pantlaza's case, X. When this ability is triggered, we exile cards from the top of our library until we exile a non-land card that has a mana value equal or lower than the card that triggered it. Then we get to cast this card without paying its mana value. It's also important to note that you can put the previewed card into your hand if you don't want to cast it straight away. It gives us a little bit more flexibility and it's always nice. The rest of the cards are then put on the bottom of our library in a random order. Discover is a very cool and powerful mechanic, helping us to get extra value whenever we play our dinos. This is always welcome, as dinos are expensive, big creatures, so getting a little bit of extra value instantly is going to make a huge difference early in the game and help us with hitting those big finishes later on. Now, onto the rest of the deck. First, we're going to look at the cards we're going to be cutting. An interesting card that was included in the deck is Itzaquinth, firstborn of Gishath. While he's adorable and is one of the cheapest dinos out there, he isn't unfortunately all that useful to us. We could pay the additional 2 whenever he enters the battlefield to remove a creature, but I don't think paying 4 for this effect is really worth it, especially when we have to rely on already having a giant creature out in order for it to be effective. Instead, we're going to be swapping him for Golter Stampede Tyrant, or perhaps his mum, Gishath. Next up could be controversial. We're going to be removing Kinjali's Sunwing. This 2/3 flyer acts as a stacks piece. However, it's not a great trigger for Pantlaza with its tiny 3 toughness, and the stacks effect could end up backfiring as our opponents focus on us to remove it. It's a judgment call though, so if you're interested, give it a go and see what happens. Now for the backup commander, Wader Trainer Prodigy. Wader is very powerful in that she acts as a Panharmonicon for damage triggers, as well as having the ability to cause those triggers to actually trigger. She could be a really cool commander to build around, and despite having a few cards that have Enrage in the deck, we're just not going to have enough of them to make it worth it. If we don't have one of these Enraged creatures on the field, and then we draw her, she'll essentially be dead. So I don't think investing 6 mana for the potential of using her as a fight trigger once again is just worth it. So unfortunately, Wader is out. Let us know though, in the comments down below, if you want to see a deck tech for this commander. I have some fun ideas about how to brew her, and I think it could be really unique. Now, let's quickly go over the rest of the cards that are being taken out. We have Majestic Heliopatris, Raging Regisaur, Shifting Ceratops, Raging Swordtooth, Bellowing Aegisaur, Rampaging Brontodon, Thundering Spineback, and Xenagos, God of Rebels. That one's going to be a bit controversial. Like the previous cards, all of these are really not efficient for what they are. 3 of them are really expensive and do a single point of damage, or essentially are vanilla beaters. A case could be made for Xenagos being indestructible and a big body is nice, however, as I think you'll see, we really aren't going to need him. Now for some cards that are included in the precon that I highly recommend that you keep in. These are Bronzebeak Forager, Earthshaker Dreadmaw, and Curious Altasaur. All 3 of these are going to offer a ton of value. On top of being giant dinosaurs already, that are great to trigger Pantlaza's discoverability with. Bronzebeak allows us to remove the biggest non-land threat that each of our opponents has, and then turn it into life gain later into the game when we have a bit of that extra mana lying around. Earthshaker Dreadmaw. Oh boy, this one is sick. So for 6 mana, he's a 6/6 with trample, but he also draws us a card for every other dinosaur that we control when he enters the battlefield. This is an amazing value, and it could potentially be refilling our hands late in the game, helping us to keep pumping out those big, giant, angry lizards. Finally, we have Curious Altasaur. Like Earthshaker Dreadmaw, it's going to act as a draw piece in our deck, but we're going to want to play this long-haired cutie really early, so that it's going to allow us to draw those cards whenever one of our dinosaurs deals combat damage to a player. Before we go, we also have Dinosaur Egg. This little guy would be an amazing inclusion for an Atla Palani deck. However, we're also going to be getting some good use out of it, so we're going to be keeping it. Hopefully, we can play this early and slowly build up that toughness using its evolve ability, and then allowing us to hit something really big and game-winning potentially when the board is wiped or when we need it. From there, we're going to move on to some cards that we're going to be adding in. First up, we have the big dogs, or maybe I should say big dinos. We are adding Gishath, Sun's Avatar, Golta, Primal Hunger, Itali, Primal Conqueror, Trumpeting Carnosaur, and Bone Horde Dracosaur. These are examples of expensive additions to our deck. So if your budget doesn't really allow for it, then don't add them. Although Golta and Trumpeting Carnosaur are around $4 each, so think of that what you will. The main thing to remember with all of these cards though, is that they provide enormous amounts of value. Gishath, Golta, and Itali are all going to be amazing top ends for our deck, helping us to close out games. Itali's ability will trigger even if it's played off of Pantlaza's Discover ability, so it's never going to be a dead draw or a dead play. Golta, on the other hand, is never going to be played for its insane 12 mana cost, so it makes a fantastic Discover ability with its massive 12 toughness, allowing us to hit any other card in our deck. Finally, Bone Horde Dracosaur is the most expensive out of these, sitting at around $12 to $13. But man, what a card. It provides dinos, card advantage, and treasure. What's not to love? But look, if you don't have the means to play these cards, then perhaps the next card could be your thing. It's a lot more reasonable hit to your wallet. Speaking of which, we have Pugnacious Hammerskull. This 3-mana dino has the downsides, to be honest, of being stunned when it attacks without another dinosaur being on the battlefield, which isn't really that bad, as we're going to want to be playing this instead because it's a 3-mana 6/6.
Ooh, that's a bingo!
Meaning we could discover 6, potentially getting something even bigger, like say our next inclusion, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. If you can suspend this card early, we're going to be getting a blocker each and every turn for 4 turns, and all of these can then be buffed into a win con when he comes off of suspend. If we were to cast this off of Pantlaza's Discover, even if having 1 or 2 extra dinos on the field could make the difference to putting us in the lead for a win. Next, we have Tranquil Fillback, a 3-mana dinosaur that can pay an additional green to destroy an artifact or enchantment, or exile graveyards, or even gain us 4 life. It's a super versatile creature, and one that we don't need to necessarily cast in order for it to be useful, allowing us to be potentially able to play it off of Pantlaza's Discover. This is also important, as we're going to be including a few blink spells in this deck. Now, you don't have to add these if you don't like them, but the ability to trigger Pantlaza's Discover at instant speed or reuse ETB effects, say on Tranquil or Itali, is going to be amazing, and it should never be underestimated. Eerie Interlude and Semester's End in particular are great if we want to protect our creatures from a board wipe. Finally, to round out the list, we have the Great Henge, Poetic Ingenuity, Skullport Nexus, and Invasion of Ikoria. The Great Henge, once again, is very expensive, so you can always swap this for another ramp or draw card if you choose. Poetic Ingenuity, on the other hand, is a really cheap card, clocking in at about 50 cents, and it's going to be making us dinosaurs and treasure while we just do our own thing. Skullport, on the other hand, is going to be used as a finisher. If we can get a creature out before playing Skullport, its mana cost is going to be reduced a whole bunch. and being able to double the power of any of our creatures is insane. Last but not least is Invasion of Ikoria. This thematic tutor is going to be amazing, as we can then use it to flip later into a giant Zolortha, an 8/8 with reach that allows us to do damage using toughness instead of power. And there you have it. Having a quick look, we can see that the deck is essentially within the same mana value and curve as the original. I normally would want to lower the mana curve even more, but like with dragons, I think dinos can get away with running a bit greedier. If you want to, you can always remove the big vanilla creatures such as Zatalpa, Primal Dawn, or Zakama. Notice though that we have almost doubled the number of draw spells in exchange for just a few lands. As always, the land base is going to be our biggest money sink, so if you want to run weaker lands, you need to run more of them. Having played the Precon a whole bunch, I can tell you I always struggled with having enough cards in hand. Then, once the game got going, I couldn't really get enough value on the board to reliably deal with my opponents. So often I was relying really hard on my commander to provide all of their mana advantage and to make the deck function. This new spread should hopefully address these issues, as well as giving us more ways to close out the game. If you want to check out the deck, please look in the links in the description and have a look and let us know. Did we miss any of the cards that you think are must includes? How did you end up upgrading the deck? And what commander do you want us to build next? Let us know in the comments down below. If you liked the video, please subscribe. It's going to really help us to grow. And as always, until next time, don't forget to pay rent.